Okay, my name's Amy. I am the lead singer of Ramen Fog, and I like cheese.
My name is Adam. I'm the guest saxophonist of Ramen Fog, and I like coffee.
My name is Rowan, and I play guitar in Ramen Fog, and I like these doors that are behind us.
My name is Ben, and I play keys, and I like milk.
My name's Josh. I play bass, and I like clowning Ben for liking milk.
Hey, my name's Adam. I play the drums, and I crush Dr. Pepper.
Who is Ramen Fog? We're just really a bunch of friends that makes music together, I think.
Yeah, I think we exist because a few of us were really desperate to play music with other people. I'm speaking for myself at least. And yeah, that's the center of it. That's what we do. We play shows too, but that's kind of a side hustle.
Yeah, we're 6 different musicians who kind of have been accumulated over time into this big group, who might not have otherwise met, outside of music or just in life in general, and come with different, music backgrounds as well. And came together to kind of blend the genres with indie pop and neo soul and jazz and rock and roll.
Yes. But yeah. I'm sure at least once in history there was somebody who was thought to be magical because of their ginger hair. Probably.
But you guys were really good at space.
Who's the whitest white person?
Like personality-wise?
Personality-wise?
Just I just mean
Just personality-wise, because that's more subjective. It's more interesting.
Actually, no, maybe Roman. He doesn't
I
want
think
to.
that so much of your taste is smell.
Right.
Like a durian doesn't taste like.
It doesn't really taste like it smells, but you smell it, and then and then you taste it, and you're like, conflicted.
Yeah, so we're at the Redgate Arts Society, an amazing venue in the city that brings a lot of local bands together and audiences that love local bands. And we're playing Shindig, which is essentially Battle of the Bands, but CITR organizes it. And I think it goes through a span of 3 weeks, is it? 4 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 weeks, basically featuring 4 bands each night, and they battle it out. So that's what we're here to do today.
Redgate, for a lot of artists in the city, is the first stop, maybe the last stop, maybe every stop. Even if you get big, you usually come back to Redgate. It's a space for everyone, and it's very welcoming. Lots of things go on here at the same time. Like above us right now, there's a band practicing in a room next door, and I think someone's getting a tattoo actually probably right above all of us at the moment. So it's a space for artists to come together and get their chance to be heard.
My name's Jim Carrico. I grew up in Squamish. I got a biology degree at UVic, and then I moved to Vancouver in 1979 and rented what was at that time the cheapest apartment in the entire city of Vancouver, 2 bedrooms, $175 a month. It was easy to get a warehouse space. In Vancouver, you could rent it for $500 a month and do whatever you wanted, right? And so the project really grew out of that I was, just a playpen for me and my friends, So the Redgate as a formal institution came from the point when my oldest daughter and her friends were getting interested in the music scene and these kinds of things, and me realizing that the opportunities that I had at that age were not there. That you couldn't that in order to have any kind of alternative culture, you needed space in which it could happen. So, and it wasn't going to just happen by itself. So it was really kind of a partnership between me and my daughter, Anna Rose. And I had some friends in Berlin, and so I got a ticket and we hung out and partied in Berlin for a few days. And then about 6 months after that, we were back in Vancouver. We were sitting around complaining, Vancouver sucks. We should move to Berlin. And then we were both like, no, we should make Vancouver more like that. So that was, in terms of, creating an organization, that was dedicated to providing space for artists. Why is there not more spaces like this? Or what is the character of Vancouver that makes it not like Berlin or Montreal, And it's really that it's not quite as true now as it once was, but for many years, decades, the whole scene was actively hiding because you couldn't do it legally. And there was actually the police were looking for, after hours places and underground spaces and things like that. So we really got really good at hiding, at being invisible, And in fact, that's sort of where the name comes from, because, this is number 5 in a series of spaces that goes back to the mid-'80s, in which we moved all the people and all the stuff from one building to the next. And so it was kind of like the same place in a different building, right? So there's been that continuity. So the third place was near Cambie and Hastings. And one of the rules that I came up with for how to not get discovered, right? There was basically three rules, like don't have people hanging around outside that can't get in, like get everybody in the door or make them go away. Don't keep anybody awake who wants to be asleep. So think about the noise and you're be bothering anybody. And the other one was no address on any of the promotional material, right? So nobody could find the flyer and track you down. So when we started doing events there, I told the first group of people that they couldn't put the address on the poster, and they were like, "Well, how are people supposed to know?" And I just said, "I don't know, just describe it, And so there was actually these security bars over the front door that were painted cherry red. And so they said, go to this intersection, walk down the street till you get to the red gates. And and so then that's what they just started calling it. Like, we didn't name it that.
Like, maybe I'll stand kind of like here, and then push it a bit further forward.
Whoa, look how many symbols they have.
What does the word community mean to me? I think the most important type of community is people who are, physically together, I think. And it's just one of those vague words, right?
I think community for me looks like connectedness with people in a way that's kind of unintentional. Like, community isn't seeking out that one friend that you see or try to see every month. Community isn't like having the same group of people that you hang out with all the time. I think community is when there's kind of a broader network of people and people recognize each other or don't, but that doesn't change the way they act towards one another or try and include each other in things.
Yeah, I find community, especially here, to just be a massive web of mutual respect. Just people that may not interact very often, like I think Rowan said, but just enhance each other's lives whenever you come into contact. And just a lot of friendship.
Well, somebody asked me, what is this place, years ago, and just, off the top of my head, I said it was a cultural wildlife refuge. And I sort of stuck with that, just a place where, where there isn't any set agenda. I mean, obviously we've gotten more organized and we have to book the events months in advance, but what's great about it is that we do have the flexibility that if somebody walks in the door, has an idea, we can make it happen. Like a lot of people who come to shows here have no idea that it's actually a multi-use space, that we have rehearsal space, we have visual artists studios, and there's a screen printing studio and that kind of thing. And it's always been important to me to have a place where people with different backgrounds can just kind of hang out, exchange ideas, come up with new points of view, whatever, So you just need spaces where people can make it, invent the future, where there's no timeline, or like nobody's watching the clock, right? You just need those spaces.
I always try to do this to myself, and today is the one day when I grow up and say, hey, I'm never going to do this very well.
Well, I would hope that, as I said, that we give people an opportunity to, express themselves. Expressing yourself is not the main key. I think it's really about collective activity. It's about what we do together that is important, right? And it's not really about getting out in front of people. It's mainly about working on long-term, cultural forms that are actually going to help the world.
I think being a musician in Vancouver has its perks, for sure. Like, I think the community is small enough in the way that you do end up seeing people that you recognize at shows, either being an audience or being a band member. And I think a lot of people find community in that. But I definitely think it's also big enough in the way that there's different genres that people can explore and different people can listen to or make. And I think I've enjoyed being a musician in Vancouver. I think a big part of that is because of the people I'm with. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that being a musician in Vancouver, it's interesting because there seems to be like a lot of different pods. There'll be groups of bands that frequently play together, and then those pods will kind of overlap each other. And then as you do it for longer and longer, they'll start to like connect into a new pod of new musicians, which is kind of cool. Feels like there's enough people that you can kind of broaden your circle. Yeah.
All right. What I think my favorite thing about being a musician in Vancouver is that I feel like people don't tend to like take themselves overly seriously in the scene, you know, because like even today, you know, we're up against these bands. It's a battle, so to speak, but you know, we're all hugging and like talking smack before the show and stuff like that, like, you know, like friends do. And you know, I feel like compared to maybe other cities where there's like more people, there's maybe more like working musicians, and it's like everything is kind of a competition in that sense, and you can kind of sense it. Where I feel like here in Vancouver, you know, it's smaller, it's more like a community, like the others have said, and it's, you know, it's all about the fun.
Hello, good evening. Here is Ramen Fog. Big round of applause.
Yeah, it took me a long time to kind of find my people, I would say. Like the first 3 years living in Vancouver, I just transferred into UBC, and I think a lot of it is kind of navigating the whole social aspect of moving to a new city. And I think what tends to happen is like a lot of people are open and nice, but might not actively try to include you. I think there's definitely like, everyone's still nice, everyone still wants to vibe with you, but like at a distance almost. So that's kind of my experience. But I think in the past year or two since I've entered the music scene, it's definitely gotten a lot better. I can see the music scene bringing a lot of people together, and me being one of those people, like being able to, you know, have a really deep conversation with one of the people that I'm sound checking with in a different band. So yeah, that's kind of my experience.
My take on Vancouver being a lonely city is that it is kind of what you make it. When I moved here, I was definitely lonely for a little while, and it rang true for me a lot at the start. And then there was a point where I decided I need to like kind of actively put myself out there, which obviously you always need to do. But I think once you realize that here, you do find the people that have similar interests to you pretty quickly. And yeah, as soon as I started making those choices, then it's just kind of blossomed from there. And I'm not lonely at all anymore in Vancouver. All these people around me and many more. So yeah.
Vancouver is a funny place where it rains most of the year, and so unless you know where to go and who to be with, you might find yourself stuck alone. And it takes a while to find those communities. And what's nice is that even in a place where people tend to come and go often, kind of seems like a stop-by city in many ways for people, whether they're coming into the country or whether they're going to the next continent. Places like Red Gate exist and they continue, whereas people keep moving, the community's still here. And so once you find it, you can rest assured that it's there as long as the space still exists, and that you'll always have a community to be with.
It's definitely hard to gauge loneliness because all the lonely people are busy being lonely. I'm not sure it's unique to Vancouver, but what is unique to Vancouver is that it's definitely a melting pot of culture. There's people from all walks of life, and you can certainly find anything that you're interested in. If you're a fencer, you can do that. If you're a big crocheter, I'm sure there's a crochet club around. It's the case for certainly the university, but also around town as well. And so if you want to not be lonely, you can not be lonely. But it's scary to take that first step because people who are lonely don't know what it's like to not be lonely.
Well, is that something that's specific to Vancouver, or is it more of a global situation? I mean, obviously, the rise of smartphones, social media, and all of that, sort of in combination with 2 years of COVID, has definitely, I think, created that loneliness in the crowd kind of vibe. But I don't know if it's that particular to Vancouver. Part of the problem is, as I said, historically, all the little scenes have been kind of hiding, right? Because you're not supposed to do that, right? Like you don't, the rules are set up that if you're not wealthy or have, backing from some deep-pocketed entity, you can't really do anything in this town, right?
I feel community is, kind of an expansive force. It doesn't really have a border or a boundary. It's an open network that is constantly evolving and expanding, and it doesn't really, it doesn't discriminate from anyone being able to enter, hopefully. And I think that's a great space here at Redgate, and a great part of this band as well, coming together and how we formed over time.
There's probably thousands of people who live within a few blocks of here who don't even know this place exists, right? And it's but it's difficult to really promote in an overt way because let's just put it this way: the regulations are hopelessly out of date. So if we can help to change those and to legitimize this kind of space, because as I said, there should be 10 places like this. I think the city could support that if they knew about it. If it wasn't so difficult. Like some people from the cultural department, they proposed that they would create a list of things that you needed to do to become a legitimate music venue or whatever, alternative cultural space, right? And I was kind of like, if people knew, if you wrote it all down and you looked at it, you would go, this is impossible. This can't be done. Nobody would do it, right? I told him that, like, nobody's going to do it. I hope that that it survives, and thrives, and it provides a seed for cultural life in Vancouver that is actually enjoyable. Actually somewhere doing something instead of everybody just moving to Montreal or Berlin.